Hi, everyone. I have been in marketing operations for 14-ish years now, 15 years. Marketing operations, just for those of you who aren't familiar with the background, is really the technology behind what has to happen in marketing. So my expertise and background is typically in B2B. I started a SaaS company in demand generation marketing. And fell in love with the technology. So quickly after I felt like I had been at that company for 6 years, I jumped to GE to manage their marketing automation arm at GE Lighting, both B2B and B2C. And honestly, was not there for very long. It was just about 2 years before I thought, like, this enterprise company is too much. The only way that I can make any more money is to get promoted. I don't want to manage a team. I had little kids, I already had a team. And so I actually went into consulting pretty quickly after that. And I'm sure we'll talk more about all the ways, how we got to where we are. But I've been consulting now for about 7 years.
Hello, I'm Sydney Mulligan. I have also spent my entire career in B2B marketing operations. I sort of stumbled into it when it was kind of a burgeoning industry. I didn't realize I was specializing in marketing operations when I went to college, and I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. So I double majored and got a degree in computer science and a degree in public relations. And then I found marketing operations at my first job at a really small startup. I don't know if many of you have worked at very small startups before. It was like 5 employees. And as you know, at a company like that, they will really let you do anything that you can do to add value. So I got handed quite a lot of things that I ended up really loving, one of them being their email marketing and ultimately their migration to Marketo, which is where I ended up building my career. I bounced around to a few different B2B SaaS companies from there. And everywhere I went, I ended up working with a consultant in some capacity, and it became a bit of a career goal for myself because I saw all of these people who I thought were so smart and had really kind of built their career around being an expert in these tools that I was really dazzled by and wanted to learn so much about. And then I ended up moving into an agency about 5 years into my career that was a really small, like, boutique marketing ops agency specifically for people using Marketo. And I learned a ton there. I stayed there for about 4 years before moving back in-house. And the story that everyone has probably told at some point in the last couple of years, unfortunately, is I was back in-house for about a year and then I got laid off while I was on maternity leave, which ended up being a blessing in disguise, I can confidently say now. But during that time is when I really kind of took a look at what I wanted out of my job. Like, what did I need my job to provide for me? What brought me joy? I also had 2 little kids at that point, and that's when Lauren and I, who frankly did not know each other very well at the time, but knew each other sort of through the Marketo Champions program, reconnected and started talking about building EMMIE Collective, and that is where we are today.
So I know some of you on the call may not be so familiar with what consulting is. I'm going to go ahead and ask, let's see, Sydney, why don't you give us just a little bit of a broad overview of consulting? And Lauren, feel free to chime in as well if there's anything she misses.
Consulting can come in a lot of different forms, but usually a company hires a consultant when they need to augment their team in some way. Sometimes it's for like a one-off project. We have more of an acute need for a certain type of specialist for a short period of time. Sometimes people use consultants to augment their team on kind of a longer term basis. And we are certainly seeing a lot of that right now. With the amount of headcount reduction that has happened in tech over the last several years, there's actually been an increase in demand for consultants. So there are a few different ways that people engage with consultants. One that you may be more familiar with if you're coming in completely cold on this is like the really large consulting firms, like your Deloitte, your EY, the big four is what they're often called. It's not for me. It's not something I've personally ever done. I can confidently say it's also not for Lauren. But maybe it's for you if you are like in the stage of your life where you are ready to like grind it out at a company, spend a lot of time, work long hours, bill a lot, probably travel a lot, but work with probably some really large companies. You'll have clients who are really, really big companies. The company you work for itself will be really big. Oftentimes they have pretty good benefits. There are lots of reasons that you may like working somewhere like that. So that's one. The other is in more of like a a focused kind of niche agency. That's the experience that I had. Lauren also worked somewhere pretty similar. What is nice about that is there was a little bit more focus on work-life balance. Sometimes consulting has a reputation for being a little bit hardcore, like you will have to bill as much as possible, bill at all costs. And that certainly can be the experience you have at an agency. It depends on what agency you pick. It wasn't my experience at an agency. What I really enjoyed about working at a boutique agency is all of the people that I worked with were also really invested in exactly the type of work that I loved doing. So I was able to learn a lot really, really quickly. And then the third type of consulting is freelancing. And that's more where Lauren and I are today and kind of how we built EMMIE Collective, which we'll talk a bit more about later. But that's when you're totally on your own, for better or worse. You can contract directly with any company as a consultant, really. There, of course, are a lot of accounting things and finance things and insurance things that you have to consider. But you do have ultimate flexibility over the type of work that you take. You have ultimate flexibility over your time, your schedule, how much work you're taking. And that is really nice for a lot of people.
Lauren, why would you say it's an attractive career path for someone who might be transitioning out of corporate or from the corporate world?
Sydney just explained all the types of places you could potentially work. I would add to that, there are different types of consultants, right? Like some are very technical or very hands-on. Other times companies will hire consultants to like rebuild entire strategies. So like come through and tell us how we should be running our marketing department differently, or our entire sales strategy should be different. So I think first and foremost, there are so many options to really pick what you like to do. I also think that when you're thinking about maybe taking a next step, it's aligning your time with your values. I like to call it like a choose your own adventure type of role, really.
I'd love to hear from both of you about EMMIE Collective and how this started.
So one thing that is actually quite kind of interesting, Sydney, we've not talked about a lot, is that the agencies that she and I worked with previously were both very small. We're both pretty male driven. We knew of each other. It's a very small like industry. And she was an employee, but I was actually a contractor already at that time. So when I left that agency, it was probably like a lot of us. It was during like peak COVID. I had 3 kids. They were in 2nd grade, kindergarten, and a 1-year-old. So I quit that job and I was like, I'm just going to take the summer with my kids and it'll be great. We just had this wonderful school year. And I had a client within like 2 weeks. And literally, like I was at the pool with my friend and our kids when I got this email, and I like looked over at her, do you want this work? And she was like, yeah, I do want the work. So I double checked that like subcontracting would be okay. And that honestly was the birth of EMMIE, because suddenly there were 2 of us and not just me. Pretty quickly, we took on 1 other client and a Salesforce administrator, which kind of rounded out our team, honestly, because I was a strategist in the market. Salesforce plays very well with the tools that I'm used to. And then my friend was running more of like campaign operations.
I officially joined EMMIE in August of 2022. I had never been a contractor before. And frankly, I was afraid to be a contractor. I did not want to. I always thought freelancing as a consultant was interesting. I knew you could make more money that way, but there were a lot of unknowns. So all of our consultants are freelancers, which means that we also don't have like an exclusive relationship with them. They consult with us, they take some work on their own, they're free to subcontract with other agencies. But what we wanted to do was create a home for these people, particularly in our little niche marketing and RevOps space, where we have seen in the last like 5 to 10-ish years, as this has grown as a vocation, people kind of hit their ceiling of being able to move up internally at a company without getting away from the parts of their job that they really loved. It's like the best of both worlds, in our opinion, at least.
Lauren, will you speak a little bit about what you've been seeing kind of in not only the people that are working for you, but in what companies are looking for from their consultants?
When EMMIE started, it was very much like, we need help in this specific area. We need help cranking out campaigns, or we need help just, we have no one managing our systems at all, our integrations at all. Or we just need a specialist. We don't really have someone that knows what they're doing, but we have a ton of people that are willing to learn and ready to go. Really quickly from there, the layoffs started happening, and it ended up being a lot more like, we're not sure how long the layoffs are going to happen, so we just need more bodies to like essentially staff our operations. And so there are some clients where even today, like we're still their entire marketing operations team. There are some where we do all of the email operation. And then what we're seeing now is like, as budgets continue to be scrutinized, they want to cut their engagements with us and either hire someone incredibly junior to just come in and try and get the work done, or to offshore that same work. So that actually, I would say, has been our biggest competition, is just a lower price point, because we're not willing to sacrifice the pay that we give our consultants because we want to hire the best.
What are some of the, I would say key skills to think about when you're looking at becoming a consultant?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the hardest skills to learn as a consultant are the soft skills, not the hard skills. Like the parts of your job that you are really good at, you're still going to be good at as a consultant. That's not different. But understanding
Yeah.
how to manage a client, that's a new set of skills to learn. As a consultant, you are selling yourself every single day. No matter what your contract looks like it does have an end date. And that's not true for employment. That's one reason that people like working with consultants right now. It's super flexible. If they can't afford this anymore, or they don't feel like you're bringing the most value anymore, they're not in the news for doing another round of layoffs. They just ended their contract with a consultant. It's no big deal. You are still selling the value that you are bringing every single day as part of their team.
And Lauren, what would you say in terms of, I know as you've grown, EMMIE, like what have you seen some of the more successful stories of your consultants have been?
I love talking about this because it, just reflects that point that I made about it being totally up to you. Even the first two consultants that we brought on, one of them like loves money, just like loves that. She works her butt off, and we joke, like we call her laptop Barbie. Like if she had two accessories, she would have two laptops. And like that is great for her. She's thrilled. She's so happy. I always just want to like work less. Like my goal is to work less. The other that we brought on, our Salesforce consultant, Nikki, and I asked her if she wanted to like moonlight a little bit for this client that it just like needed a little bit of work. And she's like, I'm going to quit my job. And I was like, nope, nope, don't do that. She was like, no, I have the skincare business that I've been really wanting to get off the ground and spend more time on. I've been wanting to get out of corporate. So like, that's going to be my focus, and I will moonlight. Like I will do this smaller amount of work with you. But by doing that, that like allows me to support my skincare business. And so, obviously those are like two totally different ends of the spectrum. But I love that, that we've been able to like fulfill those values for those people.
It's beautiful. And, it helps. It goes back to your idea of a home for everybody, right? In the collective, and you've created kind of this very unique space for everyone to bring their talents and skills. But also, I love that story about the skincare line. It's like, we have a lot of entrepreneurs on the call as well, and I'm sure that there's many things that they're thinking about doing, and consulting gives you that opportunity.
Hi, I'm Delonda. Thank you guys for taking the time to kind of walk us through the EMMIE journey. I have a question about AI, because I feel like, that's kind of like the hot topic right now. How do you guys feel that that's going to potentially impact your industry?
I have a client that is doing some things with AI right now, and I would say my work with the AI platforms up to this point gives me a lot of confidence in my job security. No, I mean, I do think it's interesting, and it is one of those things as consultants that it is important to kind of stay on top of the trends in tech. It's easy to get away from that when you are totally on your own. Like you can kind of insulate yourself from things that you're not interested in doing. But it is good to like stay on top of things like that. And I am fortunate that like it's something that my client was very interested in, so I've gotten to work with a little bit. But the more like advanced experimental AI stuff I'm seeing, like I have a client that's doing AI lead follow-up for their MQL. They're doing like automated sales reps basically. And that has been interesting, but definitely it requires a lot of management still. So I'm not super worried about it yet. And as I have seen lots of different things become automated, even pre-AI in the last 5 years or so, I just see everyone's skill sets kind of uplifting around it, where I've never felt like threatened by it. The technology still needs someone to manage it. The AI still needs someone to give it the information to work with. And I think as long as you're able to stay on top of that, then it's cool. It's better than it is bad.
A great question. So we have a lot of questions in the chat, so I'm going to just start going after them. From Kim, if you were starting from scratch with EMMIE, how would you go about getting your first consulting client?
So I know that this is probably like the biggest fear for anyone looking to going out on your own, that like, I'm just not going to have any clients. Is the work going to come in? A couple things like surrounding this question is I would not quit my job, like unless you were incredibly financially secure already, until I had my first client. So I would, if your work allows, to do a little bit of moonlighting and try to get your first client. And then if I really were starting EMMIE from scratch, so the truth of it is that it's all about your own personal network. I think it would be very hard to just sell yourself to a cold group of people that you don't know. But our biggest client that we have now, which is a pretty large client, literally was signed like without me ever having a call, just because I had worked with that person before. I think by using your network and even just, some like mentors or close friends that you've had in the past, to send them a note about what you're looking to do, and to see, maybe either they have some work for you or maybe they know someone who does. So I would definitely start there.
I will say one mistake that I see our consultants that are kind of new to freelancing make over and over is taking a really shitty first client because they're desperate to have a first client, and then they get kind of stuck with them for a while. They're either not charging enough, or they are on like a variable hours package where it's really hard for them to understand their own availability month to month to take other work. So my recommendation to you is to do your homework on what your hourly rate should be. Talk to some other people who are consulting in your space and just ask them what they're charging. Like, frankly, people will be forthcoming with it. And don't undersell yourself. Like, you might be surprised by what the hourly rates are out there right now. But it is hard to have to fire your first client because they've become your worst client. So try to avoid putting yourself in that situation if you can.
Also, like to what City was saying, like don't just like say, oh, it's a couple hours a week and whatever I work, I'll just bill you for. Like keep a minimum for yourself, because oftentimes, like if we're trying to help someone or give someone a client, they're like, oh, well, one of my personal clients, is either feast or famine. It's 2 hours this week and 20 hours next week. Like that's no way to like live your life. So I would say like, hey, if we're gonna do this, like it's gonna be 5 hours a week. Okay, that's our minimum. So you're gonna be paying me for 20 hours a month, regardless of like what actually ends up getting done.
One thing you guys might want to practice, and it's very hard when you're entering this world, but is figuring out what that right client is. I think that all of this is kind of addressing this. Like, you don't need to say yes to every client, and nor should you. What are some tips that either of you can offer around how to network as a consultant? What are some things maybe to have in your arsenal when you're starting this business, in terms of like a website, your cards, your references? Like what did you guys need when you first started launching EMMIE? And then how did you tap into, I think, reaching out to those old colleagues or people within other organizations that might be references for you?
For our space, there is a pretty big community that is like kind of organically operates. There are like a few Slack communities. There's a little bit of a community on LinkedIn, and Lauren and I are both pretty active in those. Oftentimes it looks like offering people free advice, honestly. Like, it's a great place to showcase your expertise, and your name just becomes something that sticks in people's brains of like, oh, I saw they're always answering my questions, or like I always see their name floating around, or they said something really funny. And now I need help and I'm going to go back to them. Like, honestly, that's how a lot of our business comes in. For Lauren and I, before we started EMMIE, what really built the foundation of both of our networks was being part of the Marketo Champions program. And, obviously that's extremely specific, but there probably is something like that in your space too.
I think anything that you can do that's like promoting yourself, like Sydney said.
Like, a lot of the people that have been guests on our podcast, we invited because they engage with our content a lot. Like, we know that they listen to our podcast a lot. They respond to our LinkedIn post about our podcast a lot. Some of them actually started paying us $5 a month for reasons I will never understand to support the podcast.
Do we do a lot of cold pitching in the beginning or even now? We don't and we didn't, but that doesn't mean we couldn't. Sydney and I do keep a very, very tight profit margin. It is just the two of us that are employees of the collective. We did just recently hire a small social media team to like handle that kind of stuff. But other than that, our marketing is really just investing back into that community that we keep talking about. So like ways that we can continue to like their posts and they like ours, or we're going to a trade show that we know like where most of our friends are going to be. Our joke is like we're the opposite of growth marketing. I call it, we call it sloth marketing instead. Like we don't have investors. We are a bootstrapped company. We don't have bosses other than ourselves. And so the reasons that we want to grow are oftentimes because we want to staff more consultants, not because we want to make more money. So that's just one of the reasons that we don't do a lot of like advertising or cold pitching.
I think we touched on your question, Destiny, a bit about finding any firms that are similar to yours. Destiny is in government relations and project management, but not marketing. So she wanted to know about how to go about finding boutique firms similar to what you guys do. You know, look into meetup groups and look into things like Women NYC Network. If you're in New York, Women Entrepreneurs Network, there's a lot of resources in your city and groups that are meeting. And I got to be honest, it's a pretty phenomenal time for women wanting to help each other and support each other. And even if it's 5 people in a coffee shop, like, again, you never know what that might turn into. So just really trying to find that in your specific industry.
For something like that, focus on the skills that are transferable, like project management. Project management, it is absolutely essential in every single field of work. Like there is no spot that you can work where project management is not necessary. And especially if the people that are like running the company or started up a company are not project managers, like they need your help. I have a project management background and I did project management for, for the New York City Department of Education. And I had no education background and I had no government background, but I was able to support and feel like I was really contributing to a very important mission by offering project management skills. To Sydney and Lauren's point about cultivating relationships, knowing how to talk to people. This is something that, at least in my experience, is very delicate and is a big learning area that I had when I was in government relations, like making sure that you didn't burn any bridges, that you were smoothing people's egos at every turn was extremely important when I was working in a large government bureaucracy. All of these people had been there a very long time. Many people had a lot of power and not a lot of interest in being patient with folks. And so I think that those are all very important transferable skills that are really can be brought very easily into a consulting environment.
At the end of the day, I think all of this is relationships, right? One of the things that I think is challenging right now, and when we say things like the future isn't female and it's not represented, it's like the old boys club has been around forever and they've been working this system since time has begun, and they just bring each other in and we can do the same thing, and we should, and we are with things like the EMMIE Collective. So don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to, cold reach out to that person on LinkedIn, like, hey, I saw what you're doing and this looks awesome. Let's talk. That could become an opportunity.
It feels inappropriate maybe for men to ask women to like lunch or just like to be a mentor. And don't be afraid for you maybe to make that first move. And like a man that you respect, is well known, has been a great leader for you, to ask for mentorship or to get that occasional lunch. Because unfortunately, like Colleen said, it's just been the men mentoring the men for years and years. And I think obviously it's the women's time to do so as well.
Build your own Nepo baby journey.
There you go. There you go. We are at time. This has been phenomenal, ladies. Thank you so much. I know we could talk for hours. I highly encourage y'all to go listen to their podcast because it is as much fun, if not more fun, than this call was today.
It is explicit.
Keep it real and honest, and we appreciate that. So check it out. I'll share all of the resources we talked about today. I'll share the recording too in case you didn't get to write anything down. And we will be doing more of these. Definitely check out the EMMIE Collective. And if there's any, additional resources or things you guys didn't get to share today, we'll share them in the follow-up email. But ladies, you're taking the first step like today with this call. So you can do it. Don't be afraid to reach out to us if you want to just grab 30 minutes and pick our brains more. But thank you for a lovely session, and a huge thank you to Lauren and Sydney for doing what you do and for building EMMIE Collective and for joining us today. Thank
You're
you
very
so
Thank you
much.
guys for having us.
Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.